I realize we're basically to the end of the process more than likely, and I'm just getting to vocals. Biggest reason for that is because I had to finish writing the song. I didn't have a second verse written for the song. I had gone back and forth a lot at the beginning, also trying to figure out a key. I went back and forth between like a half step, trying to figure out what worked better for my vocals. And the key I landed in, I felt like I did a lot better in the chorus parts in this key, but bringing the song half a step down actually worked better for my voice in the verses. So it was kind of a give and take. I just had to make a decision at some point. But this is the fun part about not being a very confident vocalist. I always hate doing vocals. I enjoy all the other parts, but I always dread this part because I never feel that confident as a vocalist. But anyway, main vocal parts. So the first thing you'll look, I kind of made a booth. You'll notice that the GIK booths have two sides. So we've talked about this earlier, but the other side is a lot more absorptive. Is that a word, absorptive? It absorbs more when you flip it around. When you have it on this side, because there's kind of these wood slats, you get a little bit more presence in the high end and you get just a little bit more reflections. When you flip them around, it definitely sounds a lot more dead. This side, it's subtle, but I just, standing in the booth before I even put microphones in, I flipped them both ways, and this just felt a lot better to me. So I didn't want a super dead booth, but I did want things a little contained, so this was a good middle ground, flipping them around like this. You'll see we've got a couple mics set up. So first thing is for the normal vocal, when I'm singing that way, I've got two mics set up. We've already talked about phantom center versus the center channel a few times. My idea for this was to play around with something to where I could blend between having a mic in the center channel and the main left and rights. Again, vocals are one of those things where we've heard them the same way for so long that I didn't want to deviate out of the norm too much, because then all of a sudden, I think it's going to start to sound unfamiliar to some people. You might not be able to put a finger on why it sounds weird, but it's just not going to sound like a typical vocal if it's not just coming from the front. But because we have that center channel and the phantom center to play around with, obviously we could take one mic and just blend between the two. You can do that. I wanted to play around with actually getting two slightly different vocal tones and have one of them as the main mic and the main left and right in the phantom center, and then blend one of the mics in just to the center channel, so that instead of blending one channel between phantom and center speaker, we can blend between two different mics and two different tonalities. This is what I did, but when you get the files, you can play around with different combinations and you might decide on something different. But what I landed on was to take the 017 FET as the main vocal mic. That's going to be very familiar. I'm just going to send that to the phantom center. So it's going to be sending to the left and right front speakers equally, and it's going to create that phantom center from the left and right. And that actually sounds a little bit bigger as compared to sending it just to the center speaker. So the 017 FET's going to be the main vocal mic coming out of the phantom center of the front left and front right speakers. Now I've got the bomblet next to it. The bomblet's going to be blended in just to the center channel. And again, this is what I decided to do. When you get the full session files, and if you play around with these, try different combinations. The only other thing I'll say is for the 017 FET, both of these are going through the Lakeside preamps. I pushed this one just a tad through the Lakeside, not too hard, nothing crazy. The bomblet, however, I have the bomblet going through my Launcher Deluxe in the saturate mode, so there's no boost going on, it's passive. So it's going through the launcher and saturate mode to get a little bit more color. And then that's going into a Lakeside, and I turn the gain up as high as it would go on the preamp and compensate it on the output. It's not really driving too hard. You're not getting like really noticeable harmonic distortion, but the bomblet is definitely more colorful. So keep in mind, I kind of meaningfully did this to where the 017 FET would be a little bit more cleaner, more stereotypical kind of, gain staging. The bomblet's got some color, so keep that in mind. And for whatever reason, again, I felt like, because the bomblet's definitely a little darker than the 017 FET, I just felt like having a little bit more body and just that color coming from the center speaker blended better, as opposed to flipping it around and keeping the 017 FET maybe in the center speaker and spreading the bomblet around it. So that's why I decided on. Again, maybe when I get to mix time, I'll just decide to use one of them. Who knows? But the idea is, make this a little bit more immersive, spread the vocal out in a more acoustically natural way, as opposed to playing with the size parameters in Pro Tools or something like that. We're just going to play around with really filling this up with two different mics from Phantom Center and True Center speaker to get a better spread. Other weird thing you'll see is the Ambisonic mic sitting behind me. I don't know if I'm going to end up using this. We will see. But I had this idea of maybe trying to recreate the natural acoustics of this booth in here. So when you're facing the mics this way and they're up in the front speakers, maybe take the Ambisonic mic and spread it around just in the back and blend it in just a little bit to see what happens. For this feed, what you're going to end up getting is I'm going to mute the front left, right speakers and the center channel, so that this is only coming from your sides, your rears, and your tops. I'm keeping this out of the front completely just so it can, fill up that other space that's not being utilized by these mics. The other thing that I'm going to burn in to this mic file is I'm actually going to burn in some noise suppression stuff just to make it less noisy, because it is kind of far back and it's not the loudest song in a lot of spots. So you're kind of naturally fighting the noise floor. So I'm going to burn that into the file so you don't have to worry about it, because getting that noise suppression stuff working correctly when you've got an Ambisonic mic is not easy, and that's not worth going into. But you'll have that. Maybe I will keep this out of the verses and just bring it in the choruses to try to make things bigger somehow. Might not use it at all, but again, a little bit of an experiment. I'm going to throw it in there. We'll see what happens. So let's go ahead and we'll take a listen to all these different things and see how they add up cumulatively. I remember when you took my hand. Love's a funny thing. And I remember when you let it go. That's the feeling that remains. I tried to make it right. And I tried to understand. I was told that all it takes is time, and find a way to let love in. When I'm feeling guilty, no love can save me. Buried in the shame, I feel it linger. When I'm feeling empty, mountains can't move me. All the failures we live up to start to pile up inside your troubled mind. When I'm feeling guilty, the feeling lingers on. It flows inside your veins. Death will tempt you with a peaceful lie, till all that's left is your remains. Love is patient and it's kind, but it takes effort and it takes time. In a moment you can lose yourself and spend a lifetime in that shame. When I'm feeling guilty, no love can save me. Buried in the shame, I feel it linger. When I'm feeling empty, mountains can't move me. All the failures we live up to start to pile up inside your troubled mind. When I'm feeling guilty. This is probably the only other vocal thing I'm going to do in the song. I'm keeping things pretty simple intentionally. This might just be a phase I'm in my songwriting right now, but I know really early on when I first started writing songs, I was really into layering the crap out of vocals, and I overdid it a lot. I used it as a crutch a lot of times, and so I try not to fall back on that anymore. And I'm kind of on the other end of the spectrum now where I just kind of do one main vocal and, I'm happy. But we've talked a lot about contrast so far in this process. I knew that there were moments where I wanted some layered vocals coming in just a little bit. The chorus of this song is actually what I wrote first. This is one of the rare moments where I heard something in my head and wrote it in my head before I wrote it on guitar. That doesn't happen very often, but for whatever reason, when I was writing the chorus in my head at first, when it goes, when I'm feeling guilty, when those guilty words come in, I kind of heard a whole choir in my head. And so I didn't want to go that far down and do a huge, massive choir sound, but I did want to layer some vocals in on a few lines. And so that's what I've done. For the signal chain, you'll notice that I've assembled C3PO over here. I'm surprised a lot of people still don't know this, but the capsule heads are interchangeable on the bomblet and the 017. So I've taken a bomblet body, I put the 017 capsule head on there just to get a little bit different sound so that as we layer stuff, it's not going to sound exactly the same as the main vocal mic. So we've got our C3PO mic over here. I'm running into the Launcher Deluxe again in the saturate mode. That sounded really good on the bomblet and the main vocal, so I figured I'd just, do the same thing, recreate that, make a really colorful signal chain for this. It's running into the Lakeside preamp, and I'm turning the gain up all the way on that again and compensating on the output. So really cool, colorful signal chain. Soyuz mics, to me, on vocals tend to accentuate the mid-range in a nice way. The Launcher does that as well. The Lakeside does that as well. So we're really pushing all those mids and stacking that mid-range emphasis throughout the chain. Still sounds really good to me. So what I've done, I think I've done 8 vocal layers. The first 4 are just a harmony vocal, and they're all the same. I'm panning those up to the top left, top right, top back and left, and top back right. So we've got 4 layers of that covering all 4 height speakers in the 0.4. And then I'm doing a lower vocal harmony that I doubled up, and I'm panning those 2 in the rear left and rear right speakers on the ground. Then I had this idea. I'm not sure if I'll end up keeping this. More than likely, it's one of those things that once I start mixing it, it's just going to feel like it's getting buried and you can't really tell it's there, but we'll see. I'd like to try to keep this in, but I did 2 more takes where I'm whispering some words in kind of a quiet, creepy way. And I'm trying to pan them into the room and almost into the center and just panned a little bit to the left and right behind the head, so that it feels like someone's whispering in your ear in a creepy way. We'll see if those work, but I'll end this by just playing you a little bit of the main vocal and then all this stuff sprinkled in for a handful of those lines, because it's only 3 words. It's not a lot, but again, contrast, I think it helped because we've done so many layers and put them in cool locations. I think it kind of gives a cool little moment in a few spots.
When I'm feeling guilty, no love can save me. Buried in the shame, I feel it linger. When I'm feeling empty, mountains can't move me.